Hello and welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Coming up on the 8th of September, up north if you're in that way, certainly on the never eat shredded wheat on the northwest side of England, is a rather special event. Now, I've been involved in a few of these so far, and I'm very excited to be able to talk about this one coming up. We know about the great, what is it called? The Great Reset. I've almost forgotten what they want to call it. Well, we're not interested in that nonsense. We're much more interested in the Great Resist. And we resist the resets they're shoving on us. And the lady who is very much the Boadicea or Boudica of that Great Resist is, of course, the wonderful Liz Phillips. Hello, Liz.
Hello, Richard. Can I just tell you, we're not going to the northwest unless Gateshead shifted. We're
Oh, wait
going.
a minute. Northeast. I did say
That's
never
more
eat
like
shredded.
it. I don't want.
Yes.
I don't want any upset from when I get up the other end. Thank you very much.
You
Yes,
know what I'm like. I am full of I'm full of mistakes, foot in mouths, and trip ups. That's my style.
it's not a problem. We all do it because we do these things completely. You're not an amateur, but we've done these things, Richard, just because we want everything back to basics, really, back to reality, really, back to
Yes.
real people. And real people make mistakes, and we slip up with our tongue. So that you're quite welcome to do
Well,
it.
I now am going to correct you because since I have been demonetized from YouTube, I am now back to being an amateur and doing this passionately with enthusiasm, without the corporate payment that the adverts gave me. But let's not dwell on all those things. So Gateshead is in the northeast.
It is
Let's
indeed.
get our geographical pinpointing correctly. And this is where another of these wonderful events are taking place. And I know that you will have a bevy of exciting speakers, but we're going to do it slightly differently this year.
We are indeed, Richard. We're going to have a little bit of speaking, but what we're going to do is make this. I don't want to look like the Labour Party or the Conservative Party conference. We want to make
Heaven forbid.
it. Don't. We want to make it much more interactive, and so
Yeah.
we've got a much with all the right things coming out, if you like, with all the right outcomes, should I say. We're going to do things slightly differently, where we involve the audience much more. So instead of the poor audience being spoken to and at for the best part of 5 hours, with breaks obviously in between. We're going to get them much more interactive. And to start with, we've got the wonderful Kimberly Isherwood, who everybody can't wait to hear.
Mm.
But she's going to deliver the class sex education that you would be giving to these primary school children. And we're going to involve the audience by taking them up onto stage, not all of them, a sample, as if they're in class. And Kimberly is going to teach the lesson, if you like. So instead of giving a speech, she's going to actually teach the lesson because although many people in the room will be totally convinced of what is being told, I think the shock of what
Yes.
is being told to children, which will then go out across the internet, across the world, as you know, we will broadcast the whole of the conference. Then I think that will do far more than somebody just standing there saying this is what happens. Children are taught to do this. If you actually show what is being taught, I think it's going to be a real eye opener for people.
No, and absolutely, I can't wait to see that because, as you say, it is shocking, absolutely shocking what people are being, or young children are being taught in the schools, and more we're starting to hear the dissent from parents who don't know quite what to do about it.
No, and so that's one part, and then we've got a great favourite of yours and ours is Mark Byford, the bowler hat farmer,
Oh
and
yes,
he's going to come. We're going to run a farm shop, and show. He's going to show exactly how things are grown, and we're doing calling it farming or famine, because if people don't get behind farmers, local farmers across this country, famine is going to rapidly come because they're being farmers at the moment are being paid £350 an acre not to produce food in many circumstances, and that is absolutely outrageous.
yeah,
My
no,
father will be turning in his grave.
And we've interviewed people on this show where they're renting out good agricultural land for something like £100 an acre, and so if you've got no, wait a minute, £1,000 an acre. So if you've got a bit of 100 acres and you put some solar panels in it, that's a nice, easy way of earning some money, but without actually growing anything. And that seems to be up and down the country incredibly widespread, which is a worry.
It really is, and the whole thing is just dreadful. And then we've got Godfrey Bloom is going to be updating us on this. May be done by video. I'm not sure whether Godfrey can actually join us or not. Possibly not. But Godfrey is so wonderful. We've had him speak before, and if anybody knows how the Treasury should be run, it's Godfrey. I've always said if he was Chancellor of the Exchequer and Gerard Batten was Prime Minister, we'd have this country sorted out in about 6 weeks, all back on its feet and everybody going in the right direction. So we've got Godfrey coming along to explain the government and how they're running the Treasury and the meaning of the CDCs, central bank CBC, sorry, central bank digital currencies, etc. So we've got Godfrey doing that, and then we're all very worried, Richard, as you know, that Keir Starmer has reneged on every part of his Labour manifesto. He's only been
Mm.
in power since what, the 4th of July, I think it was, wasn't it? He came to
Yes.
coming up to the end of August. So he's had about 2 months in power, and every part of what he said he was going to do is reneged on. So we've obviously got the wonderful Neil Petrie talking about direct democracy, which is what we all desperately need. Nobody's got a voice anymore. And I strongly believe that the contract under common law that we have with this government is the only thing we've got with them is the Labour manifesto, which they were elected on the 4th of July. Now, they've
Mm.
broken every part of that. So I think under common law, they've broken the contract with the people. We say no, thank you. But it's how we do that. So we'll be looking at that. I think we need to recall the MPs from the Labour Party if they're not following the Labour Party manifesto on our behalf. Now, they totally forget that they're there to represent us, not the Labour Party. They're there to represent everybody in their constituency, but with a manifesto that was put before us. So I
Yes.
think it's about time we took these people on. We're so used to government saying, oh, well, yes, we did promise that, but, oh, well, things aren't quite as we thought they were. Rubbish, absolute rubbish. So we start really, we were talking earlier before we came on about the peasants' revolt. Well, I'm revolting.
You're not. Oh, no, you're not.
Oh, yes, you know how it goes. So we'll do it with
Absolutely.
a smile, but I can tell you now, these MPs are going to be in for a shock if we do what we should be doing. So
Yes.
that's that.
Absolutely.
We've
And
got
and just on that, I mean, it ought to be an easy thing because everybody up and down the country, no matter what where their politics lie and what they believe, especially with things like common law and legality and things, if the government comes to power and it's promised this and it has broken all of, one or two, you could sort of wave and say, well, yes, circumstances have changed. But when it's all of them and they're increasing the cost of living for people they've promised not to, then I feel that most people ought to be able to get on board with that because you're not really ruffling too many feathers with this. Only,
no, absolutely not. And we spoke earlier, and saying, well, I didn't vote Labour, right? Well, that doesn't matter. The country did. The country voted Brexit. So whether you were a Remainer or a Brexiteer, doesn't matter. You're coming out. You get behind the country. So,
mm,
right, the majority of people, well, it wasn't the majority, it was about 20% of people voted Labour in on their manifesto. Okay, so we've got their manifesto. That's fine, providing they keep to it. But they're not.
yes,
Fuel bills are going up by 10%, and Keir Starmer said in January this year they fully costed their manifesto. There's no reason to put fuel prices up at all. And coupled with that, of course, pensioners like myself will no longer have a fuel allowance for this winter. And of course, more people die of cold than they do of heat. And so, I mean, these bills are it's just outrageous. That in
yes.
itself is a double
Well,
whammy.
it's murderous, isn't it? I mean, it
Okay,
is,
thank you. Yeah.
it is exactly that.
Yeah, and they'll try and stop you having a wood fire and all these sort of things, which all of us in old farmhouses and old places all have, because we're must be contributing to net zero, and this isn't doing it, and all this sort of nonsense. So we then get hold of the Labour MPs and say, right, either you follow your manifesto, which is how you've been elected, or we're going to boot you out.
Absolutely.
So
That sounds good.
that's it. So we've got a lot of things. We've got the 5G, which is probably the biggest scandal following the rape gangs in the particularly the northern towns. 5G is the biggest scandal and the biggest frightener on the planet, really. And we're doing a much more in depth, but with the audience participating this time, Richard, with Nicholas Martin, with hopefully with Eileen O'Connor from the Radiation Research Trust. What a woman she is, and of course
Yes.
Mark Steele. And the latest information that these people have got, Nicholas, Eileen, and Mark, is it's hair raising to say the least. And so that really will be an eye opener. We're going to do a good brochure on that as well, so people can take that away and really look at it. It is really frightening. This government, and the previous government as well, they've got no idea what they're unleashing, or perhaps they have. And again, you could be looking at genocide. So let's get that. Then we have Ray Savage. We haven't really delved much into crime, but with Chu Tia Kia, we've got the wonderful ex-cop Ray Savage, who I think you probably know as well,
Yes.
Richard. Ray's wonderful. He did a great expose of what was going on in Hampstead some years ago, and castigated horribly, as people are in the police force when they come forward and saying, this is not right. You should be investigating this. Why aren't we? And then they say, shh, you mustn't, like they did with the rape gang. So we've got Ray coming to talk from Sir Robert Peel to Sir Mark Rowley. So that'll be a really interesting session. And then Philip Foster, who was with Piers Corbyn. Piers Corbyn's slightly better known, I think, than Philip Foster. But Philip Foster is absolutely a fantastic man, telling you the truth about climate change. And again, it's a real subject that we're being scammed at. The reason that all these fuel prices and what have you are going up is because of the wind farm and the solar farms and what have you. And when they don't blow, we have to have gas turbines turned back on again, and all the extra cost that is going on. So we've got Philip Foster coming as well. We've got a fantastic afternoon, Richard, really. And of course, and we were hoping very much that you were going to be with us because you're off to Scotland a couple of days later. But sadly, that can't be the case. And you and I are going to have a chat shortly to put out on the day on getting back to basics, which is the theme for the whole event is getting back to basics. And I don't think you can turn the clock back. I've never been one to look back over my shoulder. I've always looked forward, but you can only look forward with a certain amount of knowledge of history, and that helps you to look forward positively. At the moment, we're in a hell of a mess.
We certainly are, and we can learn so much from our history, from the past. It doesn't mean to say that we have to sort of go back and live in caves. Although sometimes if you do live in a cave, you can defend your cave a bit more than you can your home these days. When we're reliant on the big corporations who've got the monopoly for all the gas and electricity and everything else, especially as you said with wood burning stoves. If you want to be independent, it does seem that this government doesn't like you to be that. And so if you're living in a cave with your own wood and what have you, and anyone comes near, you used to be able to quite happily club them on the head. And maybe that's what they need in order to get some common sense back into some of these people, particularly politicians. So very much looking forward to that. And I'm really sorry that I can't make that, but my dates are sort of in the wrong place. Otherwise, we would have come up a bit earlier and done that on the way to our Scotland thing, where we're meeting up with Barbara O'Neill, which is all very exciting.
Okay.
So, do we know? I mean, Gateshead's quite a big place. Have we got a hotel or a venue that we
Oh, we've
can
got a
announce it?
wonderful venue. We've got the Teams Club, and Derwent Water Road in Gateshead. And it's not as big a venue as we've had in the past, Richard. So tickets numbers are will be slightly down, but that doesn't matter. I mean, for me, the Northeast, I just love the Northeast. I always have. And you had two wonderful men from the Northeast called Neil Heron and Steve Thoburn, and they were the two men that were dumped the metric martyrs, if you remember, and they sold in pounds and ounces because when everything went over to metric, of course, old codgers like me have got no idea about kilograms and grams and milligrams and what have you. We all know pounds and ounces.
Mm.
So the fishmonger and the fruiterer were selling things in pounds and ounces, and they got taken to court, and they said no. No, no, we're going to sell in pounds and ounces. Sadly, very shortly after they won their case, Steve Thoburn died. He died of a heart attack. But to me, the metric martyrs are heroes. They're certainly heroes of mine, and many of us at the day in the day were really grateful to them for standing up and saying, no, 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 no. This is what our people want, and this is what we're going to do.
And I mean, and pounds and ounces in that old metric system comes from a long, long history of, of where it all comes from. Same with pounds, shillings, and pence. And I would love to, in the new world that we're going to create, Liz, I would love to see that 240 pennies to the pound, which makes most people go, what? 240? That's a strange number. And funnily enough, I'm reading a book which is called The Sterling Pound and talks about the lump of silver that used to be chopped up into 240 pennies, and how the pound and all of that came about, as well as the weight. And it's a lovely system. But most people sort of are dumbed down into thinking, oh, it's got to be into hundreds and all this metrics. I can't think in meters. I still have to convert in my, it's like, oh, that's 30 yards or that's 10 foot.
It was so funny because at the time when we transferred, I was working in the timber industry, in the fencing and timber industry at the time, and people would come in for 3 meters of 4x2.
Yes, there you go. It's
Yeah.
like, but we see that, don't we? A
And I
dozen
still think
eggs.
of 4x2. I can't think of it any other way. I'm a little bit better now, so I had to gen up at the time for what we were doing. But I can still think I know what a piece of 4x2 looks like a mile off,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely. Yeah. And as I say, you get a dozen eggs. And you wouldn't have, oh, I just have 10 eggs, please.
No,
Or,
there are some people that actually sell them in tens, which confuses me utterly. I only work in I only work in dozen. No,
yeah.
you're quite right, Richard. So we're looking at all of this, and we aim to have a lot of fun on the day. We aim to obviously not advise people, but educate's the wrong word as well.
Should,
Get the common sense issues out into the open. And
yes.
send people away on a high.
It sounds a marvellous event. I'm really sorry I can't be there, but I dare say, or as you said earlier, it's all going to be broadcast afterwards so people can join afterwards. But it's great to get people there because the buzz that you have being in a room with like-minded people who are keen to share ideas and knowledge and meet some of those great people in person. That's the other thing, that you don't normally get that opportunity, is wonderful. So it's going to be great on the 8th of September.
Yes, yes, yes.
How do people get their tickets?
On the Fat Soma website, which is what we've used before, and so you go onto the Fat Soma website, and tickets are £9, and I don't think that's too bad, Richard. For doors open at 11, it's 12 till 6. And as
Brilliant.
I say, we're up in Gateshead. What we're trying to do is move round the country so that people don't have so far to travel. We've done Wales and we've done Swindon and we've done Peterborough. Now we're up to Gateshead. Perhaps down in the southeast in November we might well be, because we haven't done the southeast yet. But everything goes to London in the southeast, so we're trying to move everything round so everybody gets a fair crack.
Come down to Worthing would be good, or even slightly east. Get on the Romney Marshes would be nice, wouldn't that be
Well, it,
great?
it would be if I can get a venue that won't do what they did to us in Liverpool,
Yes.
because I'm not going through that again. You see that Katie Hopkins has just gone through exactly the same thing, sold out in King's Lynn in a church It's absolutely outrageous. Explain to them who she was. Is everything all right? You're sure? Yes, 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 no problem at all. 2 days beforehand, no, pull the plug, contract. But these
Yeah.
these dreadful people don't realise that so many people that will go to see Katie as they come up to us, they'll stay in a hotel for a couple of nights. They'll come up the night before, because there are a load of people coming up to Gateshead from Wales, for instance. We don't want to drive up to Gateshead on the morning, so and they'll either come up in the morning, but then they'll stay in the evening. They'll stay that night. So you've got people booking hotels, train fares, and what have you. These organisers really want shooting.
Mm. It's
Um,
good for the local economy. I mean, I did a show with Katie Hopkins a couple of months ago in Blackpool, and it was a lovely house, and lots of people were there for a couple of days because they'd made the effort to go and see
yeah.
this one show, and they're spending money in the restaurants, in the bars, and taking in the scenes. It was a bit blustery in Blackpool, but it was still lovely.
But what upsets me about the church is that they've had all sorts of terrible things on transgender and drag queen. In this particular church, they've had the drag queens in and what have you. And and then they stop Katie.
Yes.
I despair. I honestly.
Yeah. Oh, I think we lost the signal a little bit there. I will leave the I will leave the signal. I will leave the. What am I talking about? The link in the description. Let me just explain for those people. YouTube aren't so keen on me recently. They, as you know, they banned me a few times, and now they've demonetized me. And also my links, you can't. They're not clickable anymore. God knows why. So I have to use tiny URL links. So you just copy and paste the link into a browser. It is really very simple. And then you can get there. But also, if you go to the Great Resist website, which is
www.thegreatresist.net.
and it will be there as well.
It is.
So if you need a clickable link, there it is. I'll leave that also in the description, but copy and paste it, for goodness sake. Liz, it's lovely to talk to you. We're going to go and record something now for the show. But in the meantime, I wish you well at the show. It's going to be fantastic. And I urge the audience to book early because, as you said, there's not as many tickets as before. And I can vouch it is always great fun, as well as being incredibly educational and knowledgeable and all of that. And common sense will prevail.
It will. Thank you very much, Richard.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Get yourself down there and tell me how it all was. Until next time, thanks for watching. Bye for now.